bronze pillars each weighing 34 tons, the entire structure covered with cedar wood brought from Lebanon, shining wooden floors, and 4.5-meter tall massive cherubim covered in gold. Solomon's temple was not an ordinary religious building. It was the most expensive, most magnificent, and most technologically advanced structure of that era. It took full 7 years to complete. More gold was used in it than in any other building of that time. And now comes the question that even today no one has fully understood. The stones in the foundation of the temple weighed up to 400 tons. At that time, there were no cranes, no iron pulleys, no properly functioning wheels. Yet how were such huge stones cut 3,000 years ago? How were they brought from far away? And how were they placed so precisely? Today's engineers are stunned just seeing this. Even they do not have a complete answer because this was not just a big task. It was almost an impossible task. In this video, you will learn about the methods, the materials, and the hidden ways through which the most astonishing building of that era was constructed. And in the end, you will also understand why no human has been able to repeat what Solomon did even today. The first difficulty was easy to understand but extremely hard to do. For the foundation of the temple, Solomon did not need ordinary stones. He needed the largest stones ever cut in Israel. In the Bible, 1 Kings chapter 5 verse 17 specifically mentions large stones and costly stones. When experts examined the platform of the second temple that was later built at the same site, they found stones weighing more than 400 tons. A 400-ton weight means the equivalent of about 60 large elephants. Now just imagine cutting such a huge stone from a mountain. No dynamite, no electric machines, no modern technology, just human hands and ancient methods. For this work alone, 80,000 men were employed to cut stones. These people worked in quarries spread across the hills around Jerusalem. They would wake up before sunrise, walk to the quarries, and start work. The most dangerous part of the entire work was because you cannot just break a stone haphazardly, especially when a perfect cut is required. Every stone had to fit exactly in its place in the temple. And the biggest thing was a strict rule that changed everything. No sound of iron tools was allowed at the work site. This is written in the Bible in 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 7. This meant that the stones had to come out fully prepared from the quarry itself. Every cut, every edge, every surface, everything was prepared in the quarry far from the temple. The method used was very ancient but truly amazing. First, the stone cutters would observe where the rock would break. Then, using stones harder than limestone, they would draw lines on it. They would make small, deep holes along that line. Then they would insert dry wooden wedges into those holes and pour water over them. The wood would absorb the water and start swelling. The pressure would increase. In a few hours, sometimes a few days, the stone would break exactly along the line they had planned. No explosion, no sound of hammers, no clanging of iron tools. Just a heavy sound of the stone breaking. But breaking the stone was only the beginning. Every stone had to be shaped perfectly, smoothed, and measured. This work was done by a different group of people, experienced ones who understood the architect's marks and signals. Because at that time, there were no complete maps drawn on paper. All instructions were written directly on the stones. The marks on them indicated where that particular stone was to be placed in the temple. If there was even a slight mistake, that stone would become useless. A 400-ton stone would turn into waste. The work in the quarries was not just difficult, it was life-threatening. Sometimes mountains would collapse, sometimes large rocks would roll down. Incorrectly cut stones would slide straight down the mountain and crush anyone in their path. There was no safety, no hospital nearby. If someone was seriously injured, the chances of survival were very low. Yet 80,000 men would wake up every day and head toward those same mountains to work. Why? Because the Israelite laborers, who worked in shifts, received wages, and after the work ended, they got the chance to return home. For the Canaanites who were forced to work, there was no choice. The Bible in 1 Kings chapter 9 verse 21 says that Solomon conscripted them for forced labor, and this practice had been going on since that time. They either cut stones or faced punishment. But cutting stones was just the beginning. The real difficulty came after that, the work in which the most people died. Imagine, without any machines, how a 400-ton stone was transported several kilometers through the mountains, and think about why so many people died doing it. Just picture the scene. A thick rope snaps under tension. The stone suddenly stops. The people standing in front fall. Some get trapped under the stone with no way to escape. Such accidents were not occasional. This was the daily reality of that dangerous work. Because the second difficulty was even greater than the first. You have cut the stone. Now it is fully prepared in the right shape. Now it has to be taken to Jerusalem, and its weight is 400 tons. Now think, how do you even move such a huge stone? For this work alone, 70,000 men were employed. They did not cut stones, they did not build the structure. They just pulled stones, and the method they used sounds simple but was terrifying to perform. They created earthen ramps, large slopes going up and down the mountains, compacted and hardened. They placed the stone on thick wooden logs. These logs acted like rotating rollers. Then thick ropes made from plant fibers, as thick as a human arm, were tightly tied around the stone. And then began the most difficult and dangerous part of the entire work, pulling. Hundreds of men held the thick ropes. A supervisor would shout loudly so that everyone pulled together. Pull. Stop. Put the logs back in front. Pull again. The stone would move forward just a little. Sometimes just a few centimeters, sometimes just the length of fingers. A single 400-ton stone could take several weeks just to travel 5 kilometers. And for so many days, the laborers slept right next to the stone. They ate there. They did not leave it until it reached its exact destination. But now comes the truth that makes this whole story even more terrifying. The ropes were not always strong. Plant fiber ropes could bear the weight, but they had a limit. Continuous pulling would slowly wear them out. Their threads would break one by one. And when the rope finally snapped, it was not just the rope that broke. The entire weight suddenly became uncontrollable. Some men would be thrown forward violently. Some would get crushed right there. Sometimes the stone would slide backward and crush whoever was in front. There was no insurance, no help for the family. One man died, and another would immediately take his place holding the rope. The next day, the Israelite laborers who worked in shifts had one small good thing, for them, 1 month of pulling stones, then 2 months at home. They endured all this because they knew one day the work would end. But for the Canaanite laborers who were forced to work, there was no such hope. They kept pulling stones until the entire work was finished. 7 years. Many died in the early months itself, from exhaustion, from injuries, from diseases caused by sleeping under the open sky. Among the stone transporters, the number of deaths was the highest in the entire project. Yet the work did not stop because Solomon had to complete his set time. And now comes the most astonishing part of this story. When the stone finally reached the construction site in Jerusalem, even touching it was forbidden in a certain way. Remember the rule, no sound of iron tools. This meant that placing the stone had to be absolutely perfect. If the stone was off by even a finger's width, there was no chance to hammer it into place. The stone would have to be pulled back again, the logs repositioned, and the entire effort repeated. That is why the supervisors were very strict. They measured everything, checked every corner, and if anything was wrong, the blame fell on the laborers, and the punishment was severe, lashes, reduction in food, and sometimes worse. But carrying such huge stones was not the only major difficulty. Lebanon's forests were about 200 kilometers from Jerusalem, and Solomon needed thousands of cedar logs. Now just imagine. Without trucks, how was so much wood brought from another country, and how many men must have lost their lives on that route? The real problem was not just the distance. The problem was what that distance brought. 200 kilometers of journey, mountains, valleys, rivers, and a foreign country. Thousands of huge logs had to be pulled across all those paths. Cedar wood was considered the most precious wood of that era, strong, fragrant, and almost never rotting. Kings built their palaces and temples with this wood. But this wood was only found in the mountains of Lebanon. It did not exist in Israel. So Solomon did what anyone would do. He bought it. He made a deal with King Hiram of Tyre. This deal is mentioned in the Bible in 1 Kings chapter 5 verses 6 to 11. Hiram provided his skilled lumberjacks and promised to supply as much cedar wood as needed. In return, Israel gave 20,000 cores of wheat every year, that is more than 4 million liters, and along with it 20,000 baths of oil, that is about 2 million liters. This deal was very expensive. But Solomon had no other way. Without cedar wood, the temple could not be built. 10,000 Israelite men would go to Lebanon for work. But they did not stay there permanently. The Bible in 1 Kings chapter 5 verse 14 clearly describes the method. 1 month in Lebanon, 2 months at home. Adoniram supervised this entire work. He assigned duties, formed teams. Every month, 10,000 men went to the mountains of Lebanon. They worked alongside the Sidonian lumberjacks who were experts in this work. They cut centuries-old massive cedar trees. Then they cut those trees into logs to make transportation easier. And after that came the most difficult part, bringing all that wood to Israel. The wood transportation happened in 2 parts. The first part by sea. The logs were tied together to form large floating rafts. Small boats pushed these rafts and guided them. These rafts floated by sea to the port of Joppa, which is now part of Tel Aviv. This journey took many days. Storms would come in between. Sometimes ropes would break, and some logs would sink in the sea. Still, this was the fastest way to transport heavy wood over long distances. The second part was by land, from Joppa to Jerusalem, about 60 kilometers. This distance sounds small, but every cedar log weighed a ton or more, and the same method used for pulling. Stones was applied. Small logs were placed underneath like rollers. Thick ropes were tied. Hundreds of men pulled together. But wood is more delicate than stone. If a cedar log was dragged on the ground, it would get scratched, crack, and get damaged. So great care had to be taken in transporting it, and it took a lot of time too. A single log could take several weeks to reach. Those who did this work slept under the open sky. They ate simple food, bread, lentils, and water. Many fell ill, fever, infections, extreme fatigue. There were no doctors. If a man became so ill that he could not work, another was put in his place. And if someone died, his family would find out weeks later when his duty ended and he did not return home. This system was very cruel, but the work continued. Because in the end, the cedar wood did reach Jerusalem. And every log that arrived in the city became another link in the greatest dream ever built in that era. But bringing stones and wood was only half the work. There was a rule that made everything 10 times more difficult. A rule that no one could break. And if anyone broke it, the punishment was immediate and very severe. Now think, how was a building constructed in complete silence? Imagine if a laborer accidentally struck a hammer on a stone. The sound would echo across the area. Supervisors would rush there. No excuse would work. Punishment would be immediate and very harsh. Because there was one rule above all rules. A rule that made building the temple different from every other building in the world. No sound of iron tools was to be heard at the work site. Not even one. This was not advice. It was not someone's preference. It was a direct command written in the Bible in 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 7. And whoever broke it had to pay a heavy price. But now the question whose answer is still not easy. How do you build a 30-meter tall building with hundreds of tons of huge stones and heavy cedar beams, and the two in complete silence? How do you place stone on stone so perfectly when hammering to adjust is forbidden, and if there is a mistake, how do you fix it without beating? The answer was preparation. Everything was prepared in advance in the quarry and the wood workshop. Every stone was cut to the exact size. Every cedar beam was measured to the millimeter. Every joint was planned beforehand. Because when the material reached Mount Moriah where the temple was being built, there was no second chance to correct mistakes. Architects and chief craftsmen used a marking system. They made marks on the stones right in the quarry, Hebrew letters, numbers, and special symbols. These marks indicated where that stone was to be placed in the temple. When the stones reached Jerusalem, the laborers would read the marks and know exactly where to place them. No need to measure again. No need to chisel to adjust. They just fitted the stone in place. If the stone did not fit properly, it was assumed the mistake happened in the quarry, and then someone would be punished. The atmosphere at the work site was very tense. Complete silence all around. Hundreds of men moving heavy stones. Without speaking loudly, without using iron tools, they used wooden levers, pegs, and ropes. Every step was taken slowly and thoughtfully. If even one stone went to the wrong place, the wall would have to be dismantled and the work restarted. And all this had to be done without hammers, without saws, without any banging. Such coordination was needed that even a small mistake could cause tons of stones to fall on the laborers. But why was such a strict rule in place? The answer lies in the purpose of the temple. It was not an ordinary palace. It was the house of God, a holy place where God himself would dwell. From the very first day, God had said that the place should be built with complete respect and reverence. The sound of iron tools was considered inappropriate. Therefore, the work had to be done in complete silence, with complete devotion, as if placing every stone was a prayer. 3,300 supervisors ensured this. They kept moving around all the time. They watched every action, listened to every sound, and took action at the slightest noise. Punishments varied. For small mistakes, lashes, reduction in food, and more difficult tasks. For big mistakes, the laborer was removed from work. For Canaanite laborers who were forced to work, removal from work meant going to prison or something worse. For Israelite laborers who came in shifts, removal from work meant public disgrace. That is why everyone obeyed the orders. They worked silently, and somehow, despite such difficulties, the temple kept getting built. Stone upon stone, without sound, without mistake. But building silently was only half the challenge, because the temple not only had to be big, it had to shine. 27 tons of pure gold with which the entire walls were covered. How was work done with so much precious gold? And who was that man whom Solomon called from another country? The heat of the furnaces was unbearable. The furnaces burned day and night, and gold was melted in them. Sweat-drenched people made thin gold sheets on wooden molds with hammers. Others polished the gold until it shone like a mirror. And in the midst of all this was one man, Hiram. He personally oversaw every small and big thing. He was not an Israelite. He was from the city of Tyre, a Phoenician, from the same place from where the cedar wood came. Solomon himself had called him because no one in Israel knew metalwork like him. The Bible says in 2 Chronicles chapter 2 verses 13 and 14, Hiram was the son of a widow from the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a resident of Tyre, a craftsman in bronze. He was given understanding, skill, and ability to do all kinds of bronze work. But the real difficulty was not bronze. The real challenge was gold. Full 27 tons of gold. The Bible in 1 Kings chapter 6 verses 20 to 22 describes how gold was applied inside the temple. The most holy place, the Holy of Holies, was 9 meters long, 9 meters wide, and 9 meters high. Everything there was overlaid with pure gold. Walls, ceiling, and floor. This was not just a coating. It was not a thin layer. These were actual gold plates hammered onto cedar wood. And making these plates was very heavy work. Pure gold is very soft. It bends easily. You can hammer it as thin as paper, and it does not break. But this work required skill. Special craftsmen would heat small amounts of gold over fire to soften it. Then place it on a stone anvil and hammer it, turn it, hammer again, until uniform thin plates were ready. Each gold plate took hours to make, and thousands of plates were needed to cover every part of the temple. The work never stopped. Furnaces burned day and night. A lot of wood had to be burned to maintain the heat. Men worked in shifts because no one could stand near the fire for more than a few hours. Sweat kept dripping. Hands got burned even if wrapped in thick cloth while holding tools. And this gold came from debts, from Solomon's mines, and from gifts of kings of other countries. The Bible says in 1 Kings chapter 10 verse 14 that Solomon received 666 talents of gold every year, that is more than 22 tons of gold annually. Most of that gold went straight into the temple. But the gold was not just on the walls. There were many things in the temple. Large wooden cherubim overlaid with gold, each 4.5 meters high, their wings spread touching the walls of the most holy place, the incense altar made entirely of gold, tables, vessels, and chains. Everything was shining. To make all these things required a different level of skill. Craftsmen first shaped the wood. Then metal workers overlaid gold on it. Thin gold leaves were hammered onto carved figures. Then they were polished until no blemish remained. This was both art and engineering together. And Hiram supervised the entire work himself. He was not just a laborer. He was a master craftsman, a great expert called from outside because there was no one like him in Israel. He made the 2 tall bronze pillars named Jashan and Boaz, each 8 meters high. He also made the large bronze basin for washing, supported by 12 bronze oxen. All this was done under his supervision. And when everything was finished, when the last gold plate was placed, when the last thing was polished, then the temple was no longer just a building. It became a wonder that shone with light like no other place on earth. But gold, wood, and stones, all this was useless without one thing: perfect coordination. Now think, how were 150,000 people working in different places on different tasks controlled together? And how was it ensured that the work would finish exactly in 7 years without delay? 7 years, 255 days, that was the final time. No extra time, no arguments. Solomon had promised God that the temple would be completed in the 11th year of his reign. And if you think managing 5 people is difficult, then imagine managing 150,000 people together. Laborers were spread in quarries, in Lebanon's forests, in gold and bronze workshops, and at the main construction site in Jerusalem. Every team was doing different work, and every task depended on another. If there was even a little delay anywhere, everything would stop. Now the question was, how to prevent such a large system from falling apart? The answer was supervisors, full 3,300 supervisors. The Bible in 1 Kings chapter 5 verse 16 mentions their complete count. These people did not carry stones, did not cut cedar, did not hammer gold. Their job was to assign every man to the right place, make them do the right work, and ensure everything happened on time. And above all these were 550 chief officers. The Bible in 1 Kings chapter 9 verse 23 says these were the ones who ran the entire project. They reported directly to Solomon, and there was a lot of pressure on them. The whole system ran like a military machine. Each supervisor oversaw about 45 laborers. They knew every man by name. They clearly knew who was good at which work, who was reliable, and on whom constant watch was needed. Every day before sunrise, supervisors gathered their teams. They distributed the day's work, explained what to do, and monitored until sunset. If someone did not show up for work, another was immediately placed in his position. If someone worked slowly, first a warning was given. After the third warning, direct punishment. But this system did not run only on sticks. There were rewards too. Israelite laborers who completed a month's duty received wheat, oil, and honey, enough to properly support their family for the next 2 months at home. Some supervisors gave extra food to teams that finished work quickly. This created a healthy competition. Every group wanted to be the best. They worked harder, and the work progressed faster. Now comes the part that truly amazes. In the entire 7 years of construction, no major accident stopped the work. No rebellion by laborers. No fights that halted materials. No epidemic that killed thousands. The work continued, stone upon stone, beam upon beam, gold plate upon gold plate. And then, in the 11th year of Solomon's reign, in the 8th month, exactly on the day decided, the last piece was placed. The temple was now complete. A few months later, during the Feast of Tabernacles, its dedication took place. The Bible in 1 Kings chapter 8 describes the whole scene. All Israel gathered. The priests carried the Ark of the Covenant and placed it in the most holy place. Solomon prayed in front of everyone and asked God to dwell there. And then something happened that no one expected. A cloud filled the entire temple. It was not ordinary fog. It was the glory of God, so dense, so bright that the priests could not even stand. The Bible says in 1 Kings chapter 8 verses 10 and 11 that they could not stand to minister because the glory of the Lord had filled the house of the Lord. 150,000 people had labored for years for that one moment. Many died in quarries crushed under heavy stones. Some died when ropes snapped while pulling stones. Some got scorched in the intense heat of furnaces. But those who survived were all there. With their own eyes, they saw the place they had built with their hands now filled with the presence of God. And Solomon celebrated by offering sacrifices, 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. The Bible in 1 Kings chapter 8 verse 63 says this number shows how wonderful and great the completed work was. The most difficult and unique creation of ancient times was finally complete.